Panditji. Dear friends, esteemed guests, all protocol observed. I am Pandit Ratna Singh, and I'm so honored. Can we please mute? Thank you. Thank you so much. So honored to welcome you on behalf of Ved Niketan, a standing committee of the Arya Samaj. This is a series on Back to the Vedas, and this is the fifth offering in this particular series. And how wonderful it is that tonight's lecture is on the light of truth, or Satyat Prakash, a masterpiece by Swami Dayanand Saraswati. Just last week, we celebrated Nelson Mandela Day in honor of President Nelson Mandela, who is renowned throughout the world for truth and light. So it is so fitting today that we are also having our lecture on the light and truth. It is my pleasure also to introduce to you our speaker, Mr. Surya Prakash Singh. And isn't that name so beautiful as well? Surya Prakash Ji, who will be sharing his wisdom on the truth. Hailing from an eminent Arya Samaj family in Port Shepstone, Surya Prakash Ji is a businessman and is married to Prasheen Singh. They have two children, Ayan and Bibu. His grandfather, Pandit Atmadev Singh, and great-grandfather, Pandit Ishwar Singh, were both Vedic scholars and priests. Mr. Surya Prakash Singh is the chairperson of the Port Shepstone Arya Samaj, and he has held that position from 2017 to date. In 2019, he completed the Advanced Diploma in Vedic Studies, and in 2021, kindly mute yourself, please. There's a disturbance. Okay, in 2021, Surya Prakash Ji achieved third position in the level 2 exam for senior participants from foreign countries in the Satyat Prakash competition that is held in India or hosted by India. This is indeed a remarkable achievement, Surya Prakash Ji. Please feel free to place your questions and comments in the chat as Bhaiji will be presenting his lecture. When he has finished, you will be having the opportunity to engage with him in terms of asking questions or giving your comments. Surya Prakash Ji, welcome to this platform. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us tonight, and I am sure we are going to thoroughly enjoy. Thank you so much. Over to you. Thank you.
Please unmute yourself.
Is that better?
That's audible, thank you.
Okay. Namaste to the respected participants and guests. The Light of Truth is a book written by Swami Dayanand Saraswati. It is a masterpiece, as our program director has pointed out, and a great literary undertaking.
Oh, sure.
The name of the book is actually Satyat Prakash. Satya meaning truth, Ar is exposition, and Prakash light. So the meaning of the name is the exposition of the light of truth. Swami Dayanand Ji very wittingly and consciously named the book that way. This evening, I will only discuss a certain relevant chapters due to time constraints. The first chapter deals with the exposition of Om and 100 names of God. Today, I will discuss a few attributes of God. 11 trillion and 40 billion years is one value of Om in terms of time. It is actually one complete cycle of creation, preservation, and dissolution of the world. Can you fathom the amount of energy and power that is required to sustain the world for such a long time? When we recite Om, we are reminded that God, who is omnipresent, which is everywhere, omnipotent, all-powerful, and omniscient, all-knowing, we worship and adore his greatness. Therefore, Om is the primary and most supreme name of God. God is also called Swarat, self-effulgent, meaning something that does not require an external power source. When we switch on a light, power is immediately sent from the power station. The power source is the power station. Here, God is called Swarat, where God generates infinite power from within himself, thereby not depending on any external power source. God is called Mitra, which is friend. A man who is friend to one is an enemy of another and indifferent to a third person. Hence, Mitra here cannot be taken to signify an ordinary friend, but it here means God, because he is one who is an absolute friend, unfriendly and indifferent to none. No man can ever be like him. This is the primary meaning of the word. But the secondary meaning is friend, is an ordinary friend. Mitra means God because he loves all and is worthy of being loved by all. Another attribute of God is called Agni, being the embodiment of all true knowledge. Indra, the powerful, all-powerful and protector of all. Prana, as the source of all life. Brahma, the greatest of all beings and creator of the universe. Vishnu, all-pervading. Rudra, punisher of the wicked, whom he causes to weep. Shiva, blissful and benefactor of all. Akshara, immortal, omnipresent. Kalagni, cause of the dissolution of the world and regulator of time. Chandrama, the true source of happiness. Hiranya Garbha. Hiranya is light and Garbha, source, means one who is the source and support of all light and luminous bodies, such as the sun. In the Yajur Veda, it says, in the beginning was Hiranya Garbha, the one Lord of the creation. He sustains the sun and earth. We adore him, the all blissful being. This is also Dr. Ram Vilas's favorite, Hiranya Garbha. Buddha is one who is all knowledge and endows souls with knowledge. Ganapati, Gana is host and Pati Lord, is the one who is the Lord of hosts of all the material and spiritual world, which he also protects. Ganesha, Lord of hosts. Saraswati, Sri, to achieve and know, is the one who is possessed of infinite knowledge of the universe, of words, their objects and their relations. In the Satyat Prakash, it explains the meanings of only 100 names, but there are infinite number of names of God. His names are without number because his nature, attributes, and activities are infinite. Sastras, the infinite attributes, powers, characteristics of God are described and learned by the study of those books. From this, we learn that God is known by the variety of attributes he possesses. Hence, his names are infinite. That was a brief rundown on chapter 1. The next chapter deals with the upbringing of children. This is an interesting chapter, and all parents should go through this. Matriman, Pitriman, Acharyavan, Purusho Veda, says the Shatpat Brahman. In the text, the word Mata, mother, precedes the word Pita, father. It is an invariable practice to use the word Mata before the word Pita whenever they happen to come together. Not only this word, but the word wife comes before the word husband, and the name of the wife before that of the husband. We speak of Sita Ram and not Ram Sita. This shows in what veneration the female gender was held by the ancients. Verily, that man alone can become a great scholar who has had the advantage of 3 good teachers: mother, father, and preceptor. Blessed is the family, most fortunate is the child, whose parents are godly and learned. The mother's healthy influence on a child surpasses that of everyone else. No other person can equal a mother in her love for her children or in her anxiety for their welfare. He alone is said to have a mother whose mother is devout and learned. Blessed is the mother who never ceases to impart religious tone to the mind of a child from the time of conception till his knowledge is perfected. It behoves both parents before, during, and after conception to avoid the use of such foods and drinks that are intoxicating, decomposed, non-nutritious, and prejudicial to the growth of the intellect, and use of those articles that are productive for mental tranquility, health, strength, intellect, energy, and good temper, qualities that go to make a man refined. In this chapter, precise and accurate advice is provided regarding the best time of conception of the couple. As well, after the child is born, a mother should sow in character and manners, and they should never be allowed to misconduct themselves in any way. When the child begins to speak, his mother should see that he uses his tongue properly so as to pronounce letters distinctly in the right place and with the right amount of effort. He should be taught how to address and conduct himself in the presence of his superiors and peers, mother, father, servants, leaders, and learned men, so that he may never be slight in company, but be always treated with respect. Parents should endeavor to inculcate in the minds of their children intense desire for the love of knowledge, elevating company, and control of the senses. Jealousy and malice they should not harbor. Children should avoid useless playing, crying, laughing, and wrangling. They should not give way to excess of pleasures and sorrows, nor become completely engrossed in a thing. This discipline is of great importance as the youth of today are engrossed in mobile devices and social media apps. We see how disjointed they are from reality, and they become unsociable and withdrawn. They should be advised to preserve the reproductive element. So the answer is yes, we should speak to our children about sex education at the appropriate time, of course. Parents should try in every possible way to develop in their children such sterling qualities as truthfulness, heroism, patience, and cheerfulness. They should also counsel them against all things that lead to superstition and are opposed to true religion and science. When a child is born, people are often asked to pay large sums of money to get their horoscopes read by a priest or an astrologer, and then to remove any obstacles which a child may face. This practice is of no use, as an inanimate planet could never influence the health or progress of a child. Parents should also be guarded against trying to seek help of fortune tellers and unqualified persons to treat their sick children. Rather, visit a suitably qualified professional. Parents who neglect the education of their child are his absolute enemies. To give their children the highest education possible, to instruct them in the ways of truth, to make them refined in character and manners is the paramount duty and highest virtue and the glory of parents. That brings us to the next chapter, education. It is the highest duty of parents, preceptors, and relatives to adorn children with good sound education, nobility of character, refinement of manners, and amiability of temper. In this chapter, Rishi Dayanand explains the Gurukula system of education, the disciplines that both student and teacher should follow. Boys and girls, when they attain the age of 8 years, should be sent to their respective boys only and girls only schools. In no instance should they be placed under the tuition of teachers of low character. Only those persons are qualified to teach are masters of their art. Students should be taught the Gayatri Mantra, the teachings of the Vedas, and the essential stages of divine meditation. A student should practice the 10 disciplines of yoga, the 5 yamas and the 5 niyamas. One of them is Pranayama, or control of breath. Patanjali says, the practice of pranayama gradually burns off all impurities and exalts the soul. The light of knowledge in the soul goes on continually increasing till the soul is emancipated. The Manusmriti says, just as a goldsmith, by blowing strongly against a piece of impure gold, removes its impurities by oxidation, so does pranayama burn off all impurities of the mind and senses. 1 hour at least should be devoted to the divine contemplation or meditation, which should be practiced with perfect concentration of mind. Students should also practice the 5 great duties: worship of God, Havan and the duty towards the learned, service to one's parents and other learned and righteous persons, duty towards animals and the poor and helpless, and duty towards altruistic teachers of humanity and ordinary guests, to show them proper respect and serving them to the utmost of one's power and means. That brings us to the end of chapter 3. Chapter 4 deals with marriage and married life. the correct age of marriage, and to find a suitable partner, the conduct of both husband and wife during marriage. I'll just skip chapter 4, 5, and 6. So chapter 5 deals with Vanprasth and Sannyas ashram. These ashrams begin at the age of 50 and 75 years respectively. In these ashrams, the individual renounces his worldly belongings and dedicates his life to the welfare of not only his family, but to the community and world. Chapter 6 deals with science of government, how a country should be run, the caliber and character of government officials, the patriotism one should show towards one's country. An interesting point that was made was that the punishment of a king or a president should be 10 times more than that of an ordinary citizen for the same offense committed. Chapter 7 deals with God and the Veda. God is formless because an infinite object has finite qualities. A finite object has finite qualities, actions, and nature. If God is endowed with form, then another formless entity is required to create and assemble that form. If God had made his body voluntarily, then it proves that before making the body, he was formless. God is omnipresent. If God is considered to be only at one place, then no action can be performed in inaccessible places. He cannot perform the action or the act of creation, sustenance, and destruction, nor can he be all-pervading, all-knowing, and just. God pervades inside all living and non-living beings and things. How is this possible? Electricity can travel through a metal, but metal cannot pervade electricity. This means that electricity is less dense or subtler than metal. Also, light pervades a room, but does not occupy space. Light is subtler than air. God is the subtlest in the universe. Therefore, he pervades everything, and nothing can pervade him. God is all-powerful, meaning that he does not require any assistance in carrying out any of his work. The question arises, if God is all-powerful, can he do anything? If God can do anything, then can he create another God? If so, then he would no longer be the ultimate. You cannot have two ultimates. God is also governed by his internal physical laws. He cannot break his own laws. God is just and merciful and cannot punish anyone who has not committed a sin, nor forgive someone for his wrongdoings by listening to praise and prayer. The 4 Vedas were revealed by God for the benefit of mankind. The Vedas were the means by which God revealed knowledge to all human beings at the beginning of creation. Man, being the only creation with superior intellect, was given a duty. Man is the custodian of the earth, and his responsibilities are set out in the Vedas. All human beings have the right to study the Vedas, and it should be encouraged at all costs. The Vedas are the source of Dharma, says Manubhava. Manurbhava. Be a human being. Chapter 8 is creation, sustenance, and dissolution of the universe. The Rig Veda explains, in the beginning, the whole universe was enveloped in utter darkness. Nothing was discernible. It was like a dark night. Matter was in its very elementary form. It was like ether. The whole universe, completely overspread by darkness, was insignificantly small compared with the infinite God, who by his power evolved this cosmic world out of the elementary matter. The Rig Veda also states, he who has created this multiform universe and is the cause of its sustenance, as well as dissolution, the Lord of the universe, in whom the whole world exists, is sustained and then resolved into elementary condition, is the Supreme Spirit. Know him, O man, to be your God, and believe in no other as the creator of the universe. That there are three eternal or beginningless entities in this world: God, soul, and matter, Prakriti. All of them are uncreated. The eternal soul enjoys the eternal matter and is wrapped up in it, whilst God neither enjoys it, nor is he wrapped up in it. The material cause is the Prakriti, which is the material used in the making of the universe. Being devoid of intelligence, it can neither make nor unmake itself, but it is always made or unmade by a conscious, intelligent being. Therefore, planets can never get angry, nor can they influence the happiness or misery of a particular person. Chapter 9 deals with knowledge, ignorance, emancipation, and bondage. The aim of human life is to get rid of sufferings and bondage, and to get attainment of supreme bliss, moksha. The Yajur Veda says, he who realizes the nature of Vidya, true knowledge, and of Avidya, good moral life and divine contemplation, simultaneously conquers death by virtue of Avidya and obtains immortality by virtue of Vidya. Characteristics of Avidya are the false notion that the transient world and worldly things, such as bodies, are eternal, or in other words, that the world of effects that we see and feel has always been existing and will continue to exist forever, and that by virtue of the power of yoga, the physical bodies of godly men become imperishable, is the first kind of avidya, or ignorance. Virtuous life and contemplation of God are called avidya, because they are only bodily acts and mental processes. They are not knowledge. Without pure life and contemplation of God, no one can ever conquer death. Virtuous acts, the worship of one true God, and correct knowledge lead to emancipation, whilst an immoral life of God and false knowledge are the cause of the bondage of the soul. No man can ever, for a single moment, be free from actions, thoughts, and knowledge. Performance of righteous acts as truthfulness in speech and the renunciation of sinful acts as untruthfulness alone are the means of salvation. In samadhi, the soul gets immersed in and enjoy bliss in Paramatman. Mukti, or emancipation, is not possible for infinite time because the capacity of the embodied soul, jiva, are limited, and limited means cannot yield endless outcome. God will cease to be all just should the limited actions result in endless results. Embodied souls do not have capacity, means, and aptitude to enjoy endless bliss. So it cannot enjoy endless happiness. While moksha is limited in time, God rewards man very dearly by giving him 11 trillion and 40 billion years of pure bliss, free from every suffering. This is also the time of one cycle of creation to dissolution. This shows the benevolence, generosity, and magnanimity of our Creator. Chapter 10 deals with conduct and diet. The Manusmriti says, let a man regulate his conduct according to what is sanctioned by the Vedas, taught by Smritis and other books of the Rishis, practiced by all men, good and true and approved by his own soul. Devotion to whatever promotes the good of the world, as well as abstinence from all harmful acts, are the chief duties of man. Let a man never associate with those who are atheists, liars, nor to those who are lazy, disloyal to their faith, hypocritical, selfish, and deceitful. Let him always move in the society of men who are learned, truthful, pious, and have public good at heart. This, in truth, constitutes good conduct. It is impossible for any man to be altogether free from desire, because all our actions, humanitarian works, truthfulness in speech, the practice of yamas and niyamas, and other duties proceed from desire for the same. The yamas are of 5 moral disciplines. They are non-violence, truthfulness in word, deed, and thought, non-stealing, chastity, and non-greed. The niyamas are the 5 moral observances: purity of the mind, mental tranquility, strict devotion to duty, study of the Vedas and other true sastras, and contemplation of God, and resignation to the will of God. These are just some of the disciplines that are discussed in this chapter. Diet is an integral part of man's survival. Today, we realize how important diet is after 6.4 million people lost their life to coronavirus, which some say originated due to consumption of animals, which is contrary to the belief of the Vedic teachings. Humans should eat a pure sattvic vegetarian diet. When a lion enters the forest, birds warn other creatures, but do not do so when a human being enters. This shows that humans ought to be harmless and vegetarian by nature. Food which is not just pure and nutritious, but also obtained by righteous and harmless means should be consumed. The person preparing the meal should also be of a pure nature. Food which is obtained by killing others, by theft, dishonesty, decomposed, fermented, unclean or foul-smelling, unhygienically prepared foods are all prohibited. Eating together from the same plate, eating the leftover food of others, excessive eating are all harmful to your health. Meat, alcoholic beverages, and drugs should never be consumed. Man should never kill such useful animals as cows, nor let others do the same. One cow in one generation benefits people through her milk, butter, and offspring. Putting milk and corn together, a cow in one generation can supply 390,000 good meals. Therefore, the cow is regarded as sacred and a gift from God. Chapters 11, 12, 13, and 14 deal with Swamiji's critical analysis of other major religions. He points out the inconsistencies and contradictions he found in their texts. That brings me to the end of the lecture, and I'd like to conclude by saying the teachings of the Vedas is very relevant. The knowledge is cosmopolitan and applicable for any era and nation. Man progresses technologically and advances in science, yet the world seems to be drifting away from virtues. Man is the architect of his own destruction. Countries who cannot resolve their issues through dialogue, leaders who incite violence and racial intolerance, and man's blatant disregard for nature has affected the world negatively. Practicing the knowledge of the Vedas is our only hope in changing the world for the better. Some salient teachings and guidance of the Vedas that are applicable today: eternity of God and the brotherhood of man, respect for the woman folk, love for your motherland. And yes, sorry to the India and Australia fans, you have to support South Africa first. The 16 sanskaras to be performed, marriage, which is not a contract, but a sacramental affair, cooperative spirit of working together, performance of the 5 Vyajanas, and lastly, there is no death, since life after death is a rule. Those who have a quest for truth and are in search for true knowledge should read this book. The knowledge and advice is imparted. The knowledge and advice that is imparted is invaluable. The ultimate message is back to the Vedas. Thank you.
Thank you, Surya Prakash. Hi, thank you so much. That was absolutely beautiful. You have managed to summarize a very vast topic to such a short space of time, and I don't know how you've done it. Thank you for the wonderful overview that you have provided tonight. We have a glimpse of what each chapter could be dealing, and I think everyone will agree that this book is very, very broad and is very comprehensive.
Yes.
Would require much more time for further discussion.
Yeah.
You, with your knowledge of the book, would like to go into detail in some of the topics there. And I'm sure our audience will also love that. So I hope that future dates we do have an opportunity
yes,
for more discussion, more in-depth discussion. Okay, so we are now open for questions and comments. You may unmute yourself. You can raise your hand and we will unmute you, and please ask questions. I'm sure Haji is waiting eagerly for your comments as well as your questions. So over to you. Any comments?
Angie, can you tell us how long it took you to study the light of truth and get the synopsis together? And how did you do it? How did you get into the book? It's difficult to read it because it was written more than 160 years ago. So it's pretty difficult to go through. How did you manage to do it?
Well, actually, I think I was first introduced to the book when I was about 14 years old. So that was about more than 30 years ago. So from that time, I've been, trying to decipher what's going on. But the English is a little bit different, but you get used to it. It's nothing that you cannot understand.
From 14 years old, my word. Any other questions or comments?
I just have one comment. The translation by Dr. Chiranjeev Bharadwaj is very clear and concise and easily readable. So I think that version too will help for those who find the older version of The Light of Truth difficult to interpret.
Yes, there's a new version now, and it makes reading a bit easier, and it does explain terms a little more. So I think the older version was a bit difficult to understand, but the newer version is more English friendly.
Thank you. Artiji, you may ask your question.
Namaste Ratnaji, Namaste Surya Prakashji, and everyone else present. First of all, no, it's not a question, it's just a comment. Thank you very much for enlightening us on this vast book that we have. I have also just been through the book, and I can tell you that it's a handbook for life. So what I'd like to know is from everyone present. I see Dr. Rambilas is here, and welcome Anil Kapilaji, all the way from Kenya. Can anyone come up with a suggestion on how we can take this across to the layman? Thank you.
Thank you, Panditji. Do you have any?
I think, may I just take the floor? I think to make it understandable and easily understood by all, and the layman especially, I think each chapter should be summarized with the salient teachings, the very salient teachings like Bhaiji has gone through. If we summarize it and just bring out the salient features, then into a booklet of some sort, like summary of The Light of Truth or something like that, then more people would read it and immediately get the gist of what's being taught by Swamiji. And then those who want to go further and explore further can then pick up the textbook and go through it. It will make it much more easier to know what that chapter is talking about once they've gone through the summary and understood these are the important features that man needs to follow to lead a good and proper life and be a human being, so to say. So I think it's important that either we summarize for ourselves or we get together and summarize it so that we leave something for the following generations.
Thank you, Benji. That was very valid. Anyone else? Yeah, very good suggestion. Thank you so much. Maybe we could form a team. Bhaiji, what do you think?
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. This is Tribhavan from Port Shepstone.
Namaste, Bhai. Yes, go.
Namaste. And I'd like to compliment Prakash ji for that excellent exposition of something so abstract that some of us will dare not even look at the book, let alone read it. But I'd like to remind him, Prakash ji, that his grandfather, Atmadev Singh, had many years ago wanted that this book, I think it's chapter 10 or chapter 6, in which Prakash ji has given an exposition of how the Vedas can help politics. And it was his wish to translate the book and send it to Mr. Thabo Mbeki, the then president, because at that time, the country was going from bad to worse, but now it is worst. But I think there is still time that our Prakash ji can relay the message of the Vedas, especially the chapter 6, which is on politics, and give knowledge to the people who are running the country. And I think he will serve the country in a far better way than perhaps just giving it to an august audience like us. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you, Bhaiji. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Surya Prakash ji, so will you be taking that further on in terms of summarizing each chapter?
I don't mind. It's okay. It's I mean, we have the guidance of our Dr. G and other learned elders there. And I'm sure under the guidance, we can put something together. It's a good suggestion.
It is a good suggestion, yes.
Yeah.
I wonder whether Dr. Rambalas has a comment in this regard.
Namaste, can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Ji, namaste.
Yeah, namaste. Namaste. No, firstly, like you all have said, thank you to Surya Prakash. I think an excellent effort considering it's such a vast field. And getting to the, idea of doing a summary. Well, we could try here in South Africa to do it. But India is, surely I'm sure the question, as you all know, would have come up in India as well. And there's been consensus amongst the Arya Samaj all over that you can't summarize it without losing the essence of what Swamiji is saying in the Satyarth Prakash. So I do not know whether that is valid or not. But if we have not attempted it, it is because India has taken a very strong stance that the Satyarth Prakash, the way it is presented by Swamiji, is a presentation and exposition in its own right. And any attempt to try and summarize it would be doing an injustice to whatever he's presenting. I'm not saying that I agree with it or disagree with it, but I'm just giving you an idea so you'll know why over such a long time we haven't had a summary of it yet. I don't know if that'll help. Thank you.
Point taken, Dr. Ji. Thank you. Sanjay Bhai, you have raised something in the chat. Please unmute and give us a little explanation on that.
Namaste, namaste all.
Namaste.
Thanks, Prakash Bhai. Nice. You did justice to something which is quite vast. Thank you for that. Well, I was just trying to be a little bit cheeky, if you want to call it, by saying, is it the Gita or the Satyarth Prakash that we should focus on? So it's a question as such.
Okay.
while whoever wants to respond is thinking about it, I just want to and what Dr. Ji said in terms of the summary, understand that we could lose essence of such a great book, but I think not all of us have the strength, the time, the patience, if you want to call it as well, to go into the details of the Satya Prakash, like what Prakash Bhai went through. I mean, he spent and he wrote an exam and so on. Commendable, excellent. Wish we all could do that. But they're out there who want to read something and understand and get the essence out of it. Prakash gave us such a good, in this short time, me, I personally never went, I've never read the Satya Prakash, but he gave such a good idea of what all the different chapters are. That in itself was a summary, which is telling us, the layman, what it's all about. So I don't understand why India, as Dr. Ji was saying, that we're going to lose the essence of it, because we want to have lots of takeaways. We want to read today to take away goodness to apply in our daily lives. That's what we want to acquire some sort of knowledge. So I don't know why they're saying really that it's not worth getting the summary. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Bhai.
Thank you, Ratnavenji. I think it's important that we actually take note of the fact that we here in another country, we have a different history, we have a different future, and we all have to actually make some contributions to that future. So it's very important that we try and study the Satya Prakash well. And for that, I think in addition to trying to put the message across in various ways, we need to also try and ensure that our membership actually learn and study this book. And it's a lifetime learning. So that's something we'll need to think of doing. But I do remember Pandit Athamdev, the late Pandit Athamdev, having a lot of discussions with Swami Dikshanand when he was around on the Satya Prakash. And one of the things that they both discussed was you can't read the whole book without looking at the preface. And the preface actually tells you what the intentions of the author is. And so, even if somebody reads just the preface of the book, they get a sense of why Swami Dayanand did what he did and why he put things together the way he did. So I do think we need to think of how we share this knowledge with everybody else in South Africa and make a contribution, not just in South Africa, but in Africa, because there's some very, very good points about life. But I do think Sanjay's point about, the Gita and the light of truth is something we need to think about, because, one of the chapters in the Satya Prakash is simply put in the Gita itself. But the Satya Prakash does go into further depth of why the Arya Samaj, for example, believes in a formless God and one God and doesn't believe in idols. Whereas if you interpret the Gita, you get to other points. And I do think we need to read everything and get going. So it's really great to have the summary presented. Prakash Bhai, thank you. I know when you were approached, you said it's so vast. The time wasn't good, but you've done an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you, Karunaji, for that summary. Thank you very much. You have summarized everything very perfectly and beautifully. I don't know if Bhaiji, you want to make a final comment in this regard before we conclude?
Well, yes, thank you to Arya Samaj South Africa and to all the coordinators of this great initiative of Back to the Vedas. And yes, I'd recommend the book to anyone. And this is what the book looks like, in fact. Light of Truth. So, yes, it makes a good read, and it's really educational for especially parents and those having to have children and trying to like the upbringing of children and the different stages of life. And yes, the book really gets hard hitting at some points, which I have never brought that up. But we always look at what's common interest for everyone and something for everyone to digest. So yes, so thank you, and I hope to be on again and further discussions and other topics.
Thank you. We will take you up on that one. Thank you very much. Our next lecture in the series will be on Wednesday, 17th August 2022 at 7 p.m. The speaker there will be Mr. Nirod Bramdale, who will be talking on how Arya Samaj values have shaped our lives in South Africa. Please diarize. Our deep gratitude to Mr. Surya Prakash Singh for sharing his wisdom tonight on this rather great topic and subject matter. To all participants, really thank you for your contributions. Thank you for the discussions. And thank you to Pandit Usha Devi Prasad and Ved Niketan for this wonderful series. We will conclude with Shanti part led by Pandit Basanti Bogle. Thank you, Panditji. Namaste, everybody.
Thank you, Panditji. Thank you, Surya Prakash Bhaiji, for your great work on this great book this evening. We'll do Shanti now. Om Dyo ShantirantarikshamShanti Prithivi Shantir Apaha Shantir Oshadhaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shantir Vishwe Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shantir Eva Shanti Sama Shantir Edhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste.
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 Namaste.